Thank you for the kind invitation. I'm so glad to be back. It's an honor, obviously, for me. It's been a long time since I've been on campus, and so I took this morning and I just walked around, and there have been a lot of changes, but I can also tell you a lot of things have stayed the same, and that's good to see as well. The thing I think I've noticed the most in the difference from when I was here to right now is the number of cars you have on this campus in the parking. Unbelievable. When I was here, there was hardly any parking, or hardly any cars, and not a need for many parking lots. So a lot of change there. Tony's already told you I'm a graduate of this school in 1973, and I immediately moved to Atlanta, Georgia when I graduated. And I have told the story before about how Charles Stappenfield and Jack Wyman were very instrumental in helping me make some career choices to move to the Southeast, and I'm glad they did. Obviously, I took my first job with Thompson, Ventulett, Stainback, and it is my last job as far as I can tell. I've been there a long time, and that may sound rather boring to you from your point of view. Maybe it is, and then again, maybe it's not. So we'll try to explore that a little bit with you over the next hour. My goal is to profile the firm in a rather quick fashion. We're not going to dig real deep, but I want to emphasize and build my presentation around 30 years of experience that I've had with the organization. And I can assure you it's more than just projects. And my goal today is to show you how there are a lot of ingredients that go together to make an organization, to make a firm, to make a professional practice, of which architectural design is an ingredient, but not the only ingredient. Having been in your situation before, 30 years ago, I know how fast we need to move, so we're going to try to keep this to an hour so I don't keep you here very long. But at the end, if you want to have some questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or if you want to hang around afterwards, I'd be happy to stay. So with that, let's start. And we don't have a system set up here, but we'll cue each other somehow for the slides. As I mentioned, what I wanted to do, in addition to show you images of what we do, and it's going to be a 30-year package of images. And the first images I'll show you were things we did in 1973 when I joined the firm. And hopefully the progression of events will show you how much we have grown and matured as an organization in the 30 years that I've been there. But interlaced with the images, I want to also explore with you and tell you a lot about our firm as it relates to its culture and our commitments and our firm history and our mission and our core values and all the other things that go together to make us a firm, a collaboration of individuals. Why don't we just launch the next one? We'll start with firm history. The firm was established in 1968 by three individuals, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Ventulett, Mr. Stainback, obviously. And each of them had a passion and a particular expertise that they committed to. Mr. Thompson was the business guy. Mr. Ventulett was the design guy. And Mr. Stainback was the technology guy. And what made that so powerful was they were able to collaborate in a way where they shared alike, but they also had power and dictatorial control over those areas where they were in charge or had the influence or had the passion. And the way they explained it to me when I first joined the firm was they said, visualize a three-legged stool. If you've ever sat on a stool with three legs and one leg is shorter than the other, it tips, it's uncomfortable, it's not steady, it's not stable. They viewed their practices the same way. All three legs need to be equal length, equal strength, equal stability. And so the way they looked at it, their practice was going to be built around business, design, and technology. And that was easy for me to grasp when I started my practice and learning with them, and it's been part of our foundation from that day forward and continues to be today. The firm started in Atlanta, Georgia, and it was basically an Atlanta firm, and then it started to grow and mature in the southeastern region, kind of this tri-state area, Alabama, the Carolinas, Florida. We got lucky, got a few projects, moved up the East Coast, and the next step was across the Mississippi into Texas, and then to the West Coast, and then international. So over the 30-plus years that it's been in existence, we've grown from this one location in Atlanta to being able to do work around the world. It's grown from 3 people to almost 300 people. It's grown from doing free work to last year having revenues of excess of $60 million. It has gone from just the Atlanta region to an international practice, and it's also gone from 3 owners to 100% employee-owned. It's owned by all its employees. We have, Tony already mentioned, we have offices in Chicago and Atlanta. In Chicago, we're in the Rookery in the South Loop, and that's the building shown here on the screen. And the other thing that we have done recently in the last 3 years, we have joined with 2 other firms to build an international alliance, which allows us to have offices basically all over the world that we can use as platforms to pursue work. Next, mission. We have a mission statement, and it's made of two components, and we're as serious as a heart attack as it relates to our commitment. The first one is to serve our clients. And of that mission statement, it's the first portion of the statement that is so important to us, and that is to transform our clients' visions, not our visions, not our ideas of what design should be, but what our clients envision for their project. And so we spend a lot of time talking, deliberating, collaborating, making sure we understand what our client's vision is, and then our job is to see that the design solutions embody that vision. Next. In the second part of our mission is to serve our people, and this is also a very serious part of our program. And what it's all about is creating opportunities so you can do your best work, affording you the opportunity to grow your career, to expand and mature in a way that allows you to do what you set out to do with your career. So our mission statement is simple and straightforward. Also, next, commitments. We are a global practice, but you always got to continue to develop that practice. It's not something that is arrived at or stale or stagnant. It's constantly growing and maturing and moving. But we also want to have a reputation for several things embodied in that. Design excellence. We want to always give the best results that we possibly can. Quality service, full measure plus 10%. Never fall short of giving more than you have been employed to do. Strength of culture. We're employee-owned, as I said, so the strength of culture is an ingredient that we build on and work on, and we want our organization to be known for the fact that it's a good place to work. It's a fun place to work, and if you come and work with us, you'll be able to do your best work. Business leadership. We also realize we have an obligation to our colleagues and our community that what we learn, we share. This is not something where you view your other firms as competitors. That's why we joined the Alliance. That's why we're in the Large Firm Roundtable. That's why I speak at AIE conferences. You've got an obligation as a leader to share what you know, and that's part of our process as well, and it's our commitment, part of our reputation. And then the last thing, which goes without saying, is longevity. We're planning on being here for the long term. We look at the long view. We don't look at it as a short-term, immediate, get on with things. We're always going to take the long view. And those commitments are made not only to our organization at large, but to every individual within the organization. Where do we do our work? Key markets. Basically 6 areas. Public assembly is a nice word for convention centers and maybe arenas. Retail facilities, that would be regional malls and department stores, and some smaller stores within the mall. Office, both corporate and commercial. Differentiation there is corporate is a turnkey. For a corporate client, it has a defined program. Commercial are what we call shell and core, which are open speculative space that a developer would put on the market to get multiple tenants. Education and government services, somewhat obvious. Hospitality is basically for us hotels, and then followed by interior design. Interior design both for independent clients as well as our architectural side. Try to do as much interior design as we can for the architectural projects we do. Then there's a last 7th category, which is other, which is kind of a collection of little things that don't fall neatly into one of those categories. Basically, what we call these are our best bets. You can't be all things at all times to all people. So we have narrowed our focus as to what we think we do well, where our reputation precedes us, where we have the expertise and the ability to do good work. And these are the 6 areas. To give you an idea of what it looks like in some percentage breakdown, when I joined the firm, there was always that other category, but basically it's 50-50 between retail and office. And that's what we did. Since then, as you can see, over the 30 years since I've been involved in the organization, we've been able to diversify and build a much broader based practice. The percentiles show that roughly 33% are public assembly, and we do a lot of those all over the world, followed by retail and office being the other 2 major segments. The one I'm most pleased with is interior design. That was something that I was instrumental in pushing and starting and making sure that we had a more serious commitment to it, and that has grown from nothing to at least 11% of our practice. So 11% of 60 million, over $6 million worth in revenue. So I'm very pleased with that because it's an added dimension to our practice that helps us grow and mature. As I mentioned to you, I'm going to try to insert a journey here, 30 years of what it was like when I started to what it is today. So with that, let's go to, and these images, by the way, are all award winners. At some time in the life of our practice, these have received awards. And you'll see what was an award winner in the 70s probably would not be seen as very worthy today as you move forward because time does change. This was the kind of work that TVS was doing when I joined the firm. This is about a 100,000 square foot speculative office building. It's in Atlanta, Georgia. It's called Northlake. And it is just a shell and core office building for tenants. It's an office park, and there were like 5 of these guys. Next. project that got me interested in Thompson Ventulett was the Omni Arena. This is a building that was just completed when I joined the firm, next shot, and it's a building that had roughly 17,000 seats, and the program was basically designed around basketball and hockey. It grew to change in that it got rodeos and tractor pulls and concerts and everything else that they could push into it. But the lesson learned from this for us was no sooner do you think you have accomplished or achieved or put in the ground something of significance that's going to last, they implode it and it's gone. And what drove it was not bad architecture or bad detailing or bad design or bad economics. What drove it was sports salaries. All of a sudden, the athletics and the demand for luxury boxes and entertaining in a much more sophisticated environment than seats in a round arena made this obsolete. That building didn't last but 25 years. And at the time, we thought it was state-of-the-art and probably should still be here today. It was one of the death blows to us in that we loved this building. Bottom line is, it's gone and a new facility has taken its place. IBM came to Atlanta in the early 70s saying, surely there's some talent in this town somewhere. And what they did was interview about 5 different architectural firms at the time for their new marketing headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. And we were selected. What came from that was a 30-year relationship. We have done more work with IBM than any one architect in the country, varying from manufacturing facilities to retrieval plants, to office buildings, to design for fit-up and interior design, full gamut. But it all started here, and this was about a 500,000 square foot office building in Atlanta, which has been, it's not been imploded, by the way, it's been doubled in size, and it's had an expansion. Next. Omni International, this was the project that I worked on. This was my first assignment when I was an intern architect, and what was exciting to me was it was huge. It was an MXD. It had 2 office buildings, a hotel portion, a retail section, an entertainment section, and a trade pavilion. The trade pavilion at that time was the early thought process of what a convention center should or could be. It didn't last in that they couldn't get trade pavilion tenants in it, so it was basically going to be an international trade bazaar. It didn't work. They traded, let's see, what did they make it then? An entertainment park. It became Sid and Marty Krofft, an entertainment space. It didn't last. Long and short of it, the building has gone through a lot of changes, but you might know this building today because you probably see it on television every day. CNN News now operates out of this building. This is now Ted Turner's CNN News headquarters building. He bought it as a distressed property and totally turned it into a new use. So next to it, though, is the arena, and that's the piece that's gone, and there has been a new arena put in that place. Next. Remember our friends IBM? They came back again. And this might look like a corporate office building, but in reality, it's a manufacturing facility. This facility was designed to do banking equipment at the time, and it is loaded with all kinds of unique program requirements: wet labs, dry labs, mass retrieval systems, shipping, handling, storage, cafeteria, corporate offices, as well as hundreds of acres of nature trails. This is in Charlotte. It is still in operation. I think they have changed out. They're no longer in the banking equipment business, but it still manufactures equipment, and I'm not sure what it is. But it was a very serious commission for us in that it was very large at the time, and it was our first manufacturing facility we ever did. Next. San Antonio Riverwalk. This, again, is the beginning of a long relationship with the Hyatt Corporation. They hired us to do this project on the Riverwalk. And to the right, you can see here atrium space. And the Riverwalk literally has the water going right into the lobby of the building. And this is one of their highest grossing properties yet today. And it is an example of what you would call a tourist hotel. So its programming requirements are based around a lot of different criteria. The next slide I'll show you is also hospitality, but this is a businessman's hotel. This is a little different program type. This was done in Atlanta, and it's in an office park. As a footnote, Teresa Carpenter worked on this project, so any of you who either know of or heard her or taught her, this is one of her early projects when she joined the firm. For years and years, we did small little 2,000 square foot branch offices for a group called Georgia Life Insurance Company. And the payoff was one day they finally came to us and said, "Good job, appreciate your effort on the small guys," never made a dime on them. And turned in and said, "Now we're ready to do our corporate office building." And so this was their corporate headquarters building. And again, it was another nice opportunity, which is an outgrowth of, again, commitment, collaboration, working with your client, giving them a full measure, making sure that they were happy with the project. IBM is a repeat client, Hyatt's a repeat client. That theme will be through all the things you see in the short slides we've got today. Next, hate this project, but I'll show it to you anyway. This is World Congress Center, Phase 2. This is for the state of Georgia, and I mentioned the Omni International had the trade pavilion that didn't work. This concept did work, and basically the difference was the trade pavilion had them stacked on multiple layers. This is all in one floor. This is acres and acres and acres of flat floor that allows for trade shows. This is the second phase. The first phase was a fast-track job that we did early in the career of the TVS firm, but this one was done a little later. Again, repeat client, we did a good job. You'll see later there are 2 more coming of these. Ugly carpet, by the way. This is a project in Atlanta called Concourse. Again, this is a office park, and this is a 10-story building. And what was unique about this was the beginning of smart buildings for us. This was a high-tech center. The developer client we had knew of the shifts that were going in as related to computer technology and communications technology. And so what he had us do was design into the cores the ability for their tenants to literally just plug into master systems and use their network as a base. The office park was envisioned as a low-rise project with not much density, and it has a lake and a lot of walking environments around it. In a minute, I'll show you something that happened that changed it. Next. What we believe. This is your compass setting. This is what we talk about to our people all the time. You've got to understand who you are and where you're going and what you believe. And we have 4 components in our core values: principles, service, people, and change. We'll go through each one shortly and quickly. Principles. Hit the next one. We preach this, we talk this, we lecture on it. This is something that's very important to us. This is the core of what we're all about, is be real, be fair. You've got to have integrity in today's business world. Tell the truth. If we haven't done the right thing, admit it. If you haven't done your best work, stand tall. If a client calls you down, deal with it. Just be very truthful in how you handle yourself, honesty at all times. And then respect for others. Treat everybody with respect. Doesn't matter if it's the person who's running the prints for you or the one that's in corporate management or anything in between. We constantly work with as it relates to the collaboration of building an organization and building a long-term commitment to a firm of this size. You've got to have core values, and the one that's probably the most important to me is respect for others. Next. Excellence in service goes without saying, but at the same time, there are a lot of firms that don't understand the importance of service. In our case, we talk to 3 things. On the design side, remember the 3 legs of the stool? Here are the 3 legs. On the design side, exceed aspirations. You get your client's vision, then take it to a higher level. Don't just stop with his vision if you can take him to a higher level. On technical, I've heard it said in our office that we're on the cutting edge, but not the bloody edge. Our clients are not asking us to risk their money, but they do want us to do things that are technically sound. And so you have to take that into account as you do your work. On the business side, create value and make a profit. There is absolutely nothing wrong with making money. There's absolutely nothing wrong with making lots of money. There's lots of problems with making no money. And again, a lot of firms have yet to understand there's nothing wrong with having that as part of your culture, as part of your core values, is being a good business and being a good steward of your resources and sharing it with others is what it's about. And to do that, you got to make a profit. And of course, that's what I've been trying to do for all these years since I've been doing the business side. Next, commitment to our people. Share, share, share. Give back to what you receive on your ownership. Forward thinking. Search for new ideas. We're always encouraging our people, from the youngest intern to the most senior level, looking for new ideas, looking for ways to do something differently. The teaming side, contribute and commit to each other. Our studio structure, and we'll talk about in a minute, is committed to working together, and we do it from concept to completion. You are a team, you commit, and you share the sunshine. You also share the rewards, but you share the blame if it doesn't go well. There's none of this stuff going on. You're in it together. Learning. This is one of our most powerful tools. We have seen that if we've got leaders, they're probably teaching what they know, and we encourage that all the time. So we constantly have continuing education programs going on in the office, but we also want to teach what we know. I teach what I know, but I also sit in sessions for my continuing education units where other people are teaching me what they know, and it's a constant thing from the intern level to the senior level. Give responsibility, empower your people. But with that, you also have to give them authority. You can't have responsibility and not the authority. You can't have the authority and not the responsibility. So again, it's one of our platform planks. Empower our people, but give them the tools to do their thing. And then again, I think one word sums up our organization best, and it's this last one. It's called collaboration, and that is work together to achieve more. And that's a common thing we do all the time. Next. And then this is my favorite one because this is my job. This is what I'm all about. This is what I bring to the table every day, and that is change. My job is to push change, demand change, enforce change, beg for change, create change, whatever it takes to make people understand is our profession, our industry is constantly moving and moving in different directions. If you're not agile, if you're not quick on your feet, it'll pass you by and eat you up. Flexibility, you got to be responsive. What works today probably don't work tomorrow or will not work tomorrow. What you want to have happen probably won't happen, so you've got to be flexible. Entrepreneurial. The 3 individuals who started our firm were all entrepreneurial. They were risk takers. They put their money together, they risked $100,000, they mortgaged their homes, and they put into place a business. 35 years later, I'd say it's a pretty serious business, but they had to take risks. So we constantly talk to our people about taking risks. Nothing wrong with having the entrepreneurial spirit. Don't cover up, don't do the 15th round rope-a-dope and wait to not be knocked out. I'd rather take a knockout punch and trying to create new opportunities. And then, of course, reach for new heights. We're always looking to better the organization. You can't better the organization unless you're empowering people to make change, what we believe. Back on the journey, now we're into 1988. This is closer to home. This is Toledo, Ohio. This is a Radisson Hotel, about 300 rooms, award winner. But what's unique about this, back to the collaboration and understanding where you fit in an organization or society or what works well for clients, we were not the prime architect. We worked for an engineer in Toledo. We were the design consultant on this. So where we designed it, we turned over our drawings to an organization in Toledo who would finish it. Again, that was one of the earliest opportunities for us to collaborate with another firm where we were not in charge. That was hard for us, but once we learned that it was powerful, gets good results, it became easier the second time. Next. This is an example of a retail project we did in Texas. This is called Macy's Galleria. Difficult client, demanding client, pushy client, but at the same time, a repeat client. And they came back for more because obviously we collaborated with them in a way that we got the results they want. This was one of their high-performing stores at the time. Next. Simsbury, Connecticut. This is a corporate office building for the Hartford Life Insurance Company. This is their claims processing center. All the claims, if you happen to have a policy of Hartford and you have a claim, it will be processed in this facility. What was interesting about the program that they gave us is they also had a 50,000 square foot disaster mode portion of this facility that was blocked off. It was basically like in cold storage. And it was designed that if they had a disaster, all they had to do was roll their people in and roll their computers in, turn on the lights, turn on the system, and they could get into disaster mode processing, which is obviously a lot of processing of claims in a very fast period of time. What they had envisioned were tornadoes and hurricanes and floods and all the other things that come with natural disasters. I don't believe 9/11 was on their list at the time. It would have been interesting to see what it was like on 9/12. The assumption we're making is it performed well, but I'm sure there were many claims run through that claims processing unit that day. Next. This is our office building. This is an office tower in Midtown Atlanta. It's called Promenade. And it was developed jointly by a local developer and AT&T. And it was envisioned to be the first building of 3. This was the small one. That's roughly 40 stories and about 600,000 square feet. There were 2 other that were going to be built in the background of that. The reason that never came about was AT&T went out of the real estate business and decided to not do buildings anymore or even own buildings for that matter. So with that, the project died and 1 building remains, and that's where our offices are. Next. An example of a retail image. This was one of the first examples where a client of ours said, you know, I'd like for people to sit down and have a space to relax and not just be rushing and hustling by the storefronts. And so this is in Savannah, Georgia. It's called Oglethorpe Mall. And it was one of the first opportunities we had to get serious about center courts. Up to this point, they were basically just pedestrian spines with the big boxes at each end, Sears and Penny, and you rush people up and down the spine. This was the first opportunity to put some special detail and a little extra life into the system. You'll see in a few minutes how much that has changed over the years. Next. This is an AT&T project. Again, we have done work for AT&T over the years, but this was a demonstration product showroom. This allowed them to show every piece of telephone equipment that they had for sale at the time, demonstrate it, as well as close the sale. And so you can see the different telephone instruments in the hallway, and then they had these rooms that they could show their equipment and hopefully make the sale. It wasn't successful for whatever reason, so it was torn down and it's gone. So it wasn't imploded, but it was bulldozed. It's gone. Next, Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola came to us, and they were in venture with the state of Georgia. To the direct right of the Coca-Cola pavilion here is Underground Atlanta. Underground Atlanta had been going through some tough times as far as getting visitors. And so the state of Georgia and Coca-Cola joint ventured to put Coca-Cola's museum, and this holds all the artifacts of Coca-Cola that have been in existence since the beginning of time as far as Coke's concerned. And so the state of Georgia gave them the land. Coca-Cola then hired us to design the building, and it holds all the artifacts. Again, back to our implosion concept. No sooner do you think you've got something of permanence, Coke announced last month they're moving out. They're going to build a new building and move all their archives to something bigger and more grand. The good news there is Coke's getting a new building. The bad news is we're not going to do it. They've hired John Jurdy to do that building. But the state of Georgia now is going to use it for their archives. So it'll be stuffed animals and books and things like that, I'm sure. So we've approached them already saying, hey, we know the building. We'd be happy to refurbish it for you so it would be yours. It'll be interesting to see, as you know, Coke guards their image very, very closely. It'll be interesting to see if they have us tear out the Coca-Cola bottle on the corner. As you can see, it's part of the building. And it is structural, by the way. It is part of the structural column. So with that, I would anticipate everything will go, the globe will go on for sure. Next. Remember I was talking about the high-tech office park that was intended to be low density, maybe 6 to 8 story buildings. Things changed quickly. Atlanta changed. All of a sudden the demographics were moving to the ring road and to more of the bedroom communities, and more population were finding themselves on the outside of the ring road around the building, around the city, not downtown. With that then became opportunities to do higher density. What happened then was this particular project went from a low density to a very high density, and these two buildings then were brought online almost simultaneously. They're 500,000 square foot each. Obviously they're a high rise, and they're called, we call them the King and the Queen. And this, again, the developer that we were working for demanded that it have some kind of differentiation at the top. So it went from a low density environment to a very high density environment, which then brought more traffic to the air, which brought more bedroom communities, which then built more edge cities. So these things are just leapfrogging out. Every time you leapfrog out, more buildings come into play. So we've been the beneficiary of it as it relates to fees and doing architecture, but I think the city has not benefited well from that kind of density. Next. This is an example of what I was talking about a little bit ago as far as the anchor stores at one end and just having a connector spine, a pedestrian spine. This is in Charlotte. It's called the Carolina Mall, and it's just a serpentine concept that allowed for a traditional department store scheme to thrive. That's in 1991. What a difference a year makes. Next. This is the next opportunity we had, and this client came to us and said, I'm tired of that old scheme. I want to do something special. I want to blow out the ceiling. I want to do high materials and high finishes. I want large light courts. I want to do entertainment. I want to bring in movie theaters. I want to bring in food courts that have fine dining, and on and on and on. And so this is Phipps Plaza. This is in Atlanta. This was a tired old mall that had done well over the years, but it had lost its life. So we totally renovated it and tripled its size, and this is one of the 3 courts we did. This is, I think, Court of the South. But anyway, it was the beginning of a new movement in retail design, and it worked well for us because it's a very competitive environment, the retail place is, and it got a lot of publicity. All of a sudden, we had lots of people calling us about designing their facilities because they had seen that one. Off the journey for a minute and back to the firm and its culture. We talked a little bit about how we do our work. It's a studio environment, and what we do is they're autonomous, and they're encouraged to do their own thing. So we don't have a designer or a design department or 3 gurus of design who come in and design it. These studios are empowered to do their thing within the guidelines of what we think are good quality standards. So they're autonomous as it relates to design. Each studio has a specialty. Back to the 6 markets I mentioned. you might have 2 or 3 studios that are centered or focused on retail, or 2 or 3 studios might be on convention centers or whatever. Bottom line is they usually have a specialty. And then they do oversee the project from the conception, the first line they draw, to the day they open it up. And if it doesn't work well, even the callback. They also have the full responsibility for the project from beginning to end. The advantage that we see is that it allows us as an organization, the piece I'm in charge of is bringing the resources of a large organization to bear on the small studio or the small firm environment. So what we do from the corporate point of view or the large firm is legal, accounting, business development, marketing, information technology, human resources, all those things that you must have to operate and maintain a firm today, but it frees up our designers to do what they do well, which is design buildings, meet with clients, capture the vision of the clients and expand on what we do. So you get the personal touch of the small firm. So we have like 20 small firms being supported by the infrastructure of one large firm. The big large firm gets out of the way and lets the small 20 firms do their thing. Next, this is a schematic to try to help you visualize a little bit how it all fits together. The emphasis here is right down the center. Studios and clients, clients and studios. All the management and all the corporation stuff is to the side. And that's where I live, over here in this resource side. And my responsibility is to bring these resources to bear so that these studios can do their best work and basically do it without getting in the way. The other thing I'll call your attention to is on this side of the slide, we also have a lot of information that's going on and being developed inside the studios. We now like it to come over and we've got committees, and these committees are chaired and manned by all the employees in the organization, and it's on a rotation basis, so they get a chance to tell us what they know, to tell us what's not working, to explore with us what they want to see change. And there are various committees, and we won't get into them today, but those are always changing too. So we have a constant grassroots thing going on where we have some sense of what we are not only as a professional organization, but also as it relates to a community of people working together. Next, back to the journey. This is our corporate office in Atlanta. This is the interconnecting stair. And this was a national award winner for interior design in the, is an ASID award winner in the corporate category. And again, the reason I'm so pleased with this is an outgrowth of our own interior design department doing its thing. 20 years ago, we didn't even think of doing interior design. Now it's an integral part of what we do in one of our major markets to the tune of about 11% of our revenues. Next, talk about collaboration. This is a big boy. This is a project that we did in conjunction with 2 other architecture firms in Atlanta. When I started with the firm, you would have never ever envisioned they were the enemy. You didn't collaborate with the other firms. They were your competition. And if you ever got together, they're going to know what you do well, and so on and so forth. So this came along at a time when it was good to break that barrier and create some change and push the envelope as it relates to why not? Let's share. And we also knew that if we didn't share, if we didn't collaborate, we weren't going to get this project. There was no way this project was going to be awarded to TVS. And there was no way it was going to be awarded to any of the other firms either unless we got together, which we did. It is a 72,000 seat next stadium. Why 72,000? If you don't have at least 70,000 seats, you can't have the Super Bowl. And the Super Bowl is big bucks. And so that's what drove the seat count, nothing else. In addition, this is a 9-acre roof. It's 1/16 inch thick fiberglass with a Teflon coating that goes across the whole top of that. It's about an 800 to, well, about almost 900 foot span. And at the time it was built, it was the largest rigid cable supported roof in the world. And it's a combination of tension and compression members in the rigid cable system. And obviously it was designed around the Falcons. But it also has a dual purpose. And back to our World Congress Center example, which is the convention center in Atlanta, you got to do more than 10 things in a building this size every year for its economics to make sense. So it's also used as an exhibit hall for the convention center, which is directly next door. In a few minutes, you'll see a little floor plan of all the buildings that are getting together. So it's been a successful project, even though the Falcons haven't been so successful. Phase 3, World Congress Center, as I mentioned to you, they keep coming. And again, this is an example. If you do good work for your client, and you stand tall and you're honest and you believe in your core values and you put your core values into work every day, you're going to have repeat work. And this, again, is the third phase of the World Congress Center. World Congress Center competes with other convention centers around the country. This is obviously a large center that continues to grow and is successful in our own backyard. Next. This is United Parcel Service. This is their international headquarters that we did in Atlanta. And it has a connection to Ball State in that the CEO who hired us was a Ball State graduate. His name is Oz Nelson. You may know him from Above and Beyond campaign. And he was an excellent client in that he wanted to do something special. But the one thing that he didn't want to do was become too much of an impact on the neighborhood. And so what he had us do as a criteria was this building couldn't be any taller than the trees in which it was nestled. And so we did is we took out balloons, ran them up, did measurements, and that established the height of the building, and everything from then on was established from that plane down. So he was willing to have a bigger footprint as opposed to a higher building. And so he was a good neighbor, and obviously the product that we're showing today is an exciting one in that it was very successful for his organization. It also has got loads and loads of nature trails around it, and they also encourage their culture to go outside and enjoy the sights. So it's more than just an office building. Next. Long Beach, California. This is a convention center. And again, the connecting spine, which holds the exhibit halls and the meeting rooms. One end, we've got the downtown business district, and at the other end, Queen Mary. And this allows for a lot of pedestrian traffic during conventions to connect downtown to the harbor. When we built it, the spruce goose was there, but it's gone. It flew away. I think it's up in the Seattle area now. Next is Charlotte Convention Center. This was the site of last year's AIA National Convention. And again, it's a convention center. You're starting to see a theme as it relates to organizing spaces around these large exhibit halls. Next, Mobile Convention Center. This was a serious project for them in that it was an urban renewal opportunity. A railroad yard had been basically built between the downtown area and the river's edge. And what our charge and challenge was to build over that railroad gulch and again connect the downtown area to the river. And we did that obviously with the building and the connecting spine, which you see here. It's been a very successful project, and they've been able to get lots of conventions, even though it's one of our smaller projects. Next. This is in Hot Springs, Arkansas. It's probably the smallest convention center we've done in a while, but again, it is one of our most successful, and we enjoy it because of the use of wood materials in the ceiling in particular. Our next project is, again, built around, next slide, back to Phipps Plaza. I got to have one of those. This client also saw Phipps Plaza, which was the beginning of that larger scale environment around shopping and entertainment. And this is King of Prussia, in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. This is one of the oldest malls in the country. And what they did was said, let's not only remodel it, but let's enlarge it as well. So this is another example of how retail design has taken a much higher refinement and a much higher quality as far as materials and size. Next. This is one of my favorite projects. This is the Philadelphia Convention Center. And this one took 14 years to see its final conclusion. The first 3 years, I did nothing but work on contracts and try to put together business deals. We went through 3 different contracts before we got to one that would stay in place. And basically what it was about was politics. There was a lot of competition between the city, the county, and the state as to who was going to control, who was going to manage, who was going to have certain resources and finances in place. And so we went through 3 different sets of owners and 3 different sets of contracts and negotiations before we even had a chance to start talking about architecture. But because of our ability to stay in there and hang tough, it put us in the best position, obviously, to be able to do the work when it came time to do it. This is a national AIA National Design Award winner for regional design. It's roughly 2 million square feet. At the time it was built, it was in the $300 million classification as construction cost. And it's a combination of new construction and historic restoration. Over on this side of the slide, you can see that is a cast iron train shed. And at one time, it was the Reading train shed, and it was the deadhead for all of the trains that came into downtown Philadelphia. What we did was, go to the next slide, it probably helps, was to put an elevated floor in there, and it became the ballroom on top and the meeting rooms below, and that way we were able to reclaim the space and add the square footage they needed for the convention center's support functions. And then directly to the far end of that train shed then is the new facility, which has about 600,000 square foot exhibit halls. Next. There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't have some form of education, teaching, training, seminars, brown bag lunches, you name it, it's going on. And again, it's part of our culture. We love to teach and train and educate and test those people to find out. And so back to our core commitments and our core values, we make a commitment to our employees that we're going to help them develop with their professional careers. And we involve them at all levels. So this isn't just a downside thing. We have it so that people are involved at all levels. So I'm involved by sometimes listening and sometimes talking, and it holds true for all levels of our people. We've also found that our best people, our leaders, those who are really making a difference, teach what they know. And we encourage that. We love for people to take the initiative to help everybody else in the organization understand what's going on. So teaching what you know is one of those indicators that tells us we've got a leader in the organization. We want to explore issues that impact our firm. So back to the little grassroots committee structure I was telling you about. There's a lot of things that go on in the studio that I wouldn't be aware of if we didn't have a committee structure that says, you need to know about this, we're happy about it, we're not happy about it, we need to change this is working, this is not working. So again, we're constantly exploring issues that impact us, not only internally, but externally. We have a lot of people involved in committee work and community work, and we also encourage them to bring that back to the firm and discuss it so we know how to be more responsive to those needs. And then we have the situation where I already mentioned about our committees are promoting the education process. We are putting the education in the hands of all our people, as opposed to 3 or 4 people who are on an education committee doing the teaching and training. Next. At the same time, we have an Excel program. So we have the Inform program, which is the teaching training piece. We now have the Excel program, where we're encouraging our people to surpass and do superior results in Excel. And what we're trying to do there is apply what you're learning. So we're in this Inform environment. You're learning something. Now go apply it. Go into the studio. Put it to work. Test it. See if it really works. If it doesn't work, bring it back out. Let's try it again. We want you to participate start to finish as an employee. We want you to build a career. This is not about just having a job for a year or two. This is about a long-term career. As a best example, 30 years up here. Bottom line is we want you to participate from the day one to day end. You go from start to finish, back to the studio concept of concept of callback or concept of completion. We're also trying to create a well-rounded exposure. You might have a passion, you might have an extra special skill set or something. We're going to celebrate that, advance that, use it. But at the same time, there's more to the practice of architecture than your passion or one particular skill set. So we're constantly trying to work with everybody in the organization to understand all those things that come to bear. I run a program called Business Literacy, and in that program, I'm teaching, showing, training, exploring how we make money, how you lose money, how money is counted for you, how you bill for your services, what's a multiplier, what's an overhead, what's a ratio. We unpack the books. I believe that our employees are much better employees, much better design professionals, much better everything that goes with the practice by having some understanding of the business side. And we do that on all fronts, from design to technology to business. And then after we've done all this and we have shown you and we're teaching and testing and training you, then we have to obviously measure your performance. And so we also have the performance side. And we're also worrying about career developments. We're leaning into where do you want to be? What do you want to do? How can we facilitate that? We've got a lot invested in the employee base. And so the last thing we need is for somebody not to talk to us about their career opportunities or desires and have them leave us for another firm when we could have achieved it with them being there. Skills advancement. Again, if you have a special skill set, we'll help you advance it. If you have one you want to master or learn more about, we'll help you with that as well. Leadership, we're always looking for leaders. We're always encouraging leaders. The teach what you know concept comes to play quite a bit there. And effectiveness, we're going to grade you. How well are you doing? Are you doing what we want you to do? Are you doing as well as you need to do? Are you happy with the results? So there is a scorecard of sorts too. So where we're informing, we're also dealing with the Excel. And these programs are constant. They're always involved in the day-to-day operations. Next, back to the journey. This is a small little facility we did for interface carpet. And what's unique about this is most of the materials are recycled products. The one in particular that I think is pretty cool is they went and found a building that was a structural steel building that was never built. And they went to a yard and just bought all the steel and had our structural engineer basically just design around what was the existing steel so that you didn't go and do blast furnaces and do a lot of environmental cost to creating new steel. So a lot of the products in this building are either recycled or reused. The Olympics comes to Atlanta. Next slide. And with that, Woodruff Arts Center said we need a facelift, and so they hired us to do an exterior facelift, which was a more street-friendly approach, as well as do a new lobby space. And so we blew out the lobby and made it a two-story space, and at the same time they employed our interior designers to design all the furniture. So the furniture is also designed by the company, by the firm. Next, Orlando. There are 3 major convention centers in the country that compete for market share. This is Orlando. What Orlando's got that no one else has got is the mouse. And they're able to market that in a way by saying to the convention or conventioneer, bring your family, bring your kids. While you're in conventions, they can be enjoying Disney World. And so this facility continues to grow and grow and grow, and we do it in 2 million segments at a time. They're not little pieces. And so this is one that was just completed not too long ago. We're currently finishing up a 4 million square foot expansion as this summer goes on. Next. Denver, Colorado. This is for Merrill Lynch. This is one of their data processing campuses. There are like 5 buildings and 3 parking decks. We built them all at the same time. And no sooner did we complete this, they sold the project and moved out. So again, back to that, once you think you've made a strong statement, chances are things will change. Next slide. Atlanta, Georgia. Georgia State University. The president of the university said, if we're going to be a downtown school, then I'm going to be a downtown president. And so he sold the residence that they had out in the Buckhead area and moved his family to a loft in downtown, and he hired us to do this residence. So this is the Muse's department store, which was a men's clothier, and this is a loft space, and this is his entertaining space off of, basically off his bedroom. So he doesn't have a living space. He constantly is having guests and friends in for, obviously, the advancement of the school. So another interior design project. Olympics comes to Atlanta. Adidas comes to Atlanta. Adidas comes to us and said, we need to have an entertainment space. We need to be able to have our friends and our athletes and everybody else come by and see us. And so they asked us if we could do something very quick for them. We did. This is an old warehouse that was close to the Olympic site, and we went in and put this hospitality project together. This is an all-interiors project. And when the Olympics were over, Adidas left and they tore it down. So again, not everything lasts. Olympics comes to Atlanta. Here we are with a plaza that we were asked to design by the state of Georgia, which was an attempt to create an outdoor space for the hundreds of thousands of people who would be collecting in this area. At the very top is, hey, all right, I get to use this. That's the Georgia Dome. That's the 72,000 square foot or seated Falcons Arena. This is, remember I was talking about all the phases of the World Congress Center? There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4. This is the World Congress Center. This is the Omni International, or the Omni Arena, which was imploded. That was the 17,000 seat arena. And right here in the middle is what this is. And what they wanted was a connector that allowed all the people who were coming out of these different venues. That was gymnastics and basketball. This was wrestling and badminton. This was volleyball. This was the whole communications setup for the Olympics. So there were tens of thousands of people at any one time in this area, and so this was the design we came up with. Next. This is a small performing arts theater that we did for a Jacksonville Community College in Jacksonville, Florida. Next. The Olympics goes to Salt Lake. This is the Salt Lake Convention Center that we did several years ago. And what they used this facility for at their Olympics was they put all, for the first time in the history of Olympics, they put all of the communications systems in one place. So this was print and television and radio and everything else that's interconnected in one building. And so even though we didn't design it for the Olympics, we can take credit. We had another project that supported the Olympics. Next. Back to the collaboration and the core values and how we are as a culture. We're 100% employee-owned. And that started in 1979 by establishing and working through a vehicle called an Employee Stock Ownership Plan, or an ESOP. You may have heard of them. Bottom line is it's a complicated plan. It's hard to understand. It's riddled with government and politics as it relates to how it's managed, and basically the U.S. government's our partner. Knowing that, about 5 years ago, I initiated a study and it was called an ownership culture research study. And bottom line was I was trying to find out is, do you feel like an owner? What's it going to take to make you feel like an owner? How do you feel about being involved in the day-to-day management of the office and so on? Bottom line is we did the study and we got excellent feedback, and from that we created a 14-point program which allowed us to advance our culture in a way that people are becoming more and more owners in the feeling of being an owner. They always were owners on paper, but now they feel like an owner because they're having say in what we do. One of the things that I was able to do because of the survey was to open the books. Our people said, well, if I'm going to feel like an owner, I need to know what it looks like. Tell me about the money side. Tell me about how we do. What's profit? How do we make money? What's our revenues and so on. So I have developed a business literacy program which we do 2 times a year, and we show them the books. You take a risk when you do that, back to the risk-taking, back to the core values, create change, lead change. It has done nothing but create benefit and a lot of commitment because our people understand that we're honest and open, and we want them to know how their firm is doing. And so there are no secrets there. Next, we're on the home stretch now as far as images. This is another large project that we've completed for retail. This is called Mall of Georgia. And this has the traditional box at each end, and it's got the spine and all the department stores along the edges. What it has that has created a new trend is an open air piece, and directly in front of this building is a village. And it's reminiscent of downtown USA in the 50s, where you would drive your car up to the curb and go into the drugstore, go into the 10 and 5 and dime and so on. So there is a village concept that's outside of this, which is now what everybody wants to do. So all of a sudden this has become the prototype for more and more retail. It's also open air. It's long before your time, but basically malls were open air at one time. Then they enclosed them, and then they air conditioned them. Now they're wanting to open them up again, and we're designing one now in Ohio, believe it or not, where you would think the weather would be not the best for this, all open air mall. Next, we also do master planning and regional planning and some city planning, and this is a site that we have programmed and designed, and it's a brownfield. It was a site where a steel mill had been on, it's in Atlanta, had been in location there for years, and it's now been reclaimed. It's directly across the interstate from our office, and it's been designed around retail, office, and residences. We are not doing any of the buildings, though. We just did the master planning. Next, another small manufacturing facility for interface carpets. They do carpet squares, and basically you find them just about any tenant office in the country. Next. Back to Phipps Plaza for a minute. That was the first one where we blew out the ceiling and did the large courts and all the entertainment and refinement of high materials. Because it was so well publicized, our friends in San Diego, Chile came and said, we want one too. And so this is their version of Phipps Plaza. As you can see, it's a much more contemporary solution, and the materials are much different. But again, they are also upgrading their retail facilities to be more like those in America. Next. Equifax. If any of you have ever made an application for a loan, they have probably checked out your credit, and if they checked out your credit, they probably went to this organization. This is the Equifax corporate headquarters building that we did in Atlanta. And what was nice about this is before, they were in a building that was basically a monolithic concrete box with some pillbox open holes, and it gave off the impression that they were secretive and not to be trusted, and there was something going on behind those walls. Bottom line is the new CEO came into the organization and said, enough, I want a totally different image, I want a contemporary image, I want an open door image, I want lights on image, come see us, we're not the bad guy, we're not the guy that's going to cause you the problems as it relates to this process of loan applications. And so with that, they asked us to do something special on a very nice piece of peach tree, and this is what came out. Shell and core office building. Remember the first one I showed you, which is that little concrete thing with the little wind bracing? This is the Summit 3003. This is a 10-story shell and core office building, about 250,000 square feet. And we also did the interior lobbies as well on this. And it is in the process of being leased now. It's a very, very new building. This one's in your backyard, McCormick Place, Chicago. This is, again, is another National AIA Design Award winner for us. This is 3 million square feet. This is called the South Expansion. It has roughly 1 million square feet of that is in exhibit halls, and it also is in the $500 million range at the time we built it. Next, it also has a connecting spine that holds the meeting rooms on one side and the exhibit halls on the other. And to this little vignette here, you can see one of the halls that's open. But no sooner did they start the expansion, they realized that they needed a hotel. And so the next slide shows they just put a change order together and gave us a $65 million assignment to do an 800-room hotel for our old friends, the Hyatt Corporation. So here again, it made it easy for us to be the selected architect because we'd worked for Hyatt before. Hyatt knew we did good work. It's back to your core values and giving full measure. And they didn't want to not get the momentum that had already been established on this project. So the team was in place, the engineers were in place, and so we just did it as a change order. That's the only time I've ever seen that happen in my 30-plus years. But I liked it. It was good. Next, this is something we've just finished on the Vanderbilt estate in North Carolina. This is called the Biltmore, and this is a resort and spa hotel. I've not been there, but I look forward to being there soon. Next, some interior shots. This is West Wayne. This is a advertising agency in the Southeast, and these were a great client, and they said, let's have fun. Let's try some things. We need to change our image. We're all tied up, and we got all these little cubicles, and nobody seems to see each other, and we're not talking to each other, so we just blew it out, and they allowed us to have all the fun we could have, including picking all the furniture and also designing some of the furniture. So that's West Wayne. The next one is Carter's. Carter's Children's Clothing. This is their corporate headquarters in Atlanta. And they were a little bit more controlled than West Wayne, but again, they were looking for a new image as well as relates to contemporary design ideas. Next one is DuPont. DuPont Flooring Systems. Here again, we had a lot of fun with this, and what their goal was to display as many floor products as possible in the lobby. So that's our response. All right, World Congress Center, back, phase 4. Here's the next piece. It's currently being finished as we speak. It probably will be 100% online within the next 2 months. There has been one show in there, and that's the other challenge as it relates to architecture today. You're having to do phased occupancies and premature occupancies and understanding the dynamics of what that means not only from the design sense but from a business sense, because you're basically going into a building before it's done and people are using it, and therefore you've got all kinds of parameters that wouldn't normally be the case if you just finished it and moved on. Next. The big boy. This is the DC Convention Center that we're currently working on right now. To help you with the scale of things, that is 2 city blocks wide, 3 city blocks deep. It's a quarter-mile long. Well, here's 30 years. Here's where I started, and here's where we are. And the opening comment about staying one place for 30 years must be kind of boring. Well, I can tell you it has not been boring. If anything, it's been really exciting, especially when you look at the changes we've gone through. 100,000 square foot, maybe $2 million at the time, 2.5 million square feet, $800 million. And the way I look at it, we're just getting started. The first 30 years have been good, but the next 30 will even be better. And with that, we'll take you to kind of what it all comes together and how it all came together. And that is what happened to us this year with the highest honor that the AIA can bestow on an architectural firm. And that is an award that recognizes an architectural practice that has produced distinguished architecture consistently for at least 10 years. Now, there's more to it than that. And hopefully you've seen by us rushing through these slides today, there's a lot about an architectural practice that has to be looked at before this award is granted. It's about your culture, it's about your leadership, it's about your depth of resources. It also takes into account how you're managed, how you work with people, how your projects work, as well as awards. And so, at the same time, when you're really excited and thrilled to get that news, all of a sudden there's a rush that comes over you. You also realize that you're very humbled. And if you look at the list of previous recipients, it speaks for itself. We're a distinguished company, and we're very, very honored to be there. Tom Penny was our presenter. And the thing he said it right up front. We won't go through the whole thing, but he says, TVS is a corporate culture that emphasizes collaboration. And that absolutely sums us up. That's what we're about. That's what we preach. That's what we teach. That's what we emphasize. And we do it every day, all day long. And it was nice to have someone, Tom Penny, who came to meet with us and work with us because he had to present us. This is what he captured in working with us. We didn't tell him. These are his words, and he saw it and was able to phrase it. And obviously he saw it and captured it in a way that we were very pleased. Future goals? Keep it going, obviously. That's my goal, and to share it. We've got to create new studios. We've got to expand our market shares. We're looking for new markets all the time. But at the same time, it's not growth for growth's sake. You've got to maintain your shareholder value. You've got to be able to keep your depth of resources in place and grow it strong. So just to grow it for growth's sake, not going to happen. Identify new leaders. That goes back to the informed process and program. We're constantly looking and talking and involving ourselves with our people. We're looking for leaders, and we're going to teach them, and we're going to train them, and then we're going to test them. And if they can do it, they're going to be empowered to go do their thing. The other thing, too, is this learning environment. That's what we're about. But one of the goals we've set for ourselves as it relates to our strength, we want to be identified as one of the firms that fit into the 100 best firms to work for. And we're not talking about the architectural industry. We're talking about corporate America. And there is a top 100 list, and that's what we've set our goals on. And then as it relates to recognition, when the rewards come, enjoy them. But at the same time, understand you've got to stay humble because as quickly as they come, they go. Last slide. When we were getting ready to receive the award in D.C., it gave us all an opportunity to reflect and think about what's happening and who are we and where are we going. And what came to me was really simple, is that there was no one project, no one design, no one person, no one event, no one decision that ever made that award possible. In all honesty, it was hundreds of projects and dozens of awards and tens of thousands of small decisions and hundreds of people working together over 30 years that made that award possible. And what came out of that when I was given the opportunity to make the speech was the phrase, through the hands of many. And that's absolutely how we work, and that's exactly how this award came about, is no one person, it was through the hands of many. And what I would challenge you is to come join us. If anything I've had to say today is what you think you're all about, because we're talking about building careers and building your professional opportunities. It's not about a job. And for those people who are wanting to do that, I think we're a pretty good place to be. And that's what I've been able to do, is build my career for 30 years, and I got a few left. But at the same time, I'm looking for leaders all the time. Somebody's got to take my place. So come see us. Thank you. Appreciate it being here.